Hello and welcome to Dark Aspects, a video series where I take a look at my favorite family-friendly Nintendo games from an adult's perspective to see what kind of morbid jokes the developers may have snuck in, or how heavier subject matter, for example, is handled. This particular episode is a complete overhaul of one of my first 5 Dark Aspects videos I ever made, when Color Splash first released on Wii U nearly 8 years ago. I think that video holds up okay, but there was so much I missed I figured I might as well redo it entirely. I know Color Splash isn't a very popular Paper Mario game, but I promise you, if you're just a Mario fan in general, some of the stuff this game gets away with will surprise you. With the Thousand Year Door remake on the horizon, let's look back on the dark aspects of this divisive little game. Paper Mario Color Splash opens like many classic tales of literature, on a dark and stormy night. I'm referring to you, Donkey Kong Country instruction manual. On said night, a shaken-looking Peach and her Toad retainer appear at Mario's doorstep. This is no jaunt, however. The princess is here for business as the bearer of bad news. To Mario's great surprise, she hands over the corpse of a paper toad that was mailed to her, completely sapped of its color, leaving nothing behind but a plain white sheet. According to a postage stamp on the back of this lifeless toad's head, the body was sent from Port Prisma, a place where Shy Guys are more common than even Goombas, who run amok wielding weapons that strike fear into the hearts of this world's wafer-thin inhabitants. Straws. These straws are said to be given to the most competent Shy Guy grunts, promoted to the title Slurp Guy, granting the ability to suck away an individual's life essence, their paint, which is established in the introduction to course through the veins of all paper people. The creepiness of this concept was not lost on the developers. In fact, the horror aspect is actually embraced. Slurp Guys are basically vampires, draining a victim of their lifeblood. Said toads will scream until the color up to their eyes is gone and they're no longer physically able to use their vocal cords. King Ollie, main antagonist of the next game in the series who plots to commit toad genocide, would love this. Accompanying the beautiful sound of a screeching toad are psycho strings, used especially well again with the enemy's twisted cousin Shundkai, a folded paint-thirsty creature who bends backwards like a demon and can only be killed with fire. I referred to one of these blank husks earlier as a corpse, but in actuality the state these toads are left in is closer to stasis, as they're able to be revived with Mario's hammer, imbued with the power of paint by the newly awakened Prisma Fountain Guardian, Huey. If Mario is ever defeated in battle though, a horde of Slurp Guys will come and steal the fallen protagonist's color. It implies Mario's demise, which means that without the chosen hero, each and every affected toad remaining probably won't be coming back. A talking paint can companion, a can-panion, may sound kind of lame, but he's actually a well-written character. Intelligent Systems successfully made me care about a flying paint bucket. Anyway, our 2 heroes must travel across Prism Island in search of the scattered big paint stars, able to produce an infinite supply of its respective color as the primary and, secondary, I guess, sources of the world's life-giving paint. They must do this while restoring toads and blank spots left by these suckers along the way. Whenever a big paint star is retrieved, the mystery of the stolen paint starts becoming much clearer. Why are the Shy Guys involved? Is it simply that they're mischievous, like in the N64 game where they terrorize Toad Town for fun? Well, yes, they are rather naughty creatures by default, but someone or some things got them riled up now. Surprise, surprise, it's Bowser, who is thankfully allowed to speak again after tragically being muted in Sticker Star. Well, the big bad is technically Bowser, but he hasn't actually done anything mean on purpose this time. You see, mixing all 6 main colors of paint in this world is considered blasphemous, and it's incredibly dangerous because doing so creates a substance known as black paint that's toxic to the touch. This hazard hurts any living being that comes into contact with it, shown firsthand when a Bonsai Bill rockets into Sunglow Ridge and explodes in a manner similar to an atom bomb. The missile makes impact in the faraway hills, but Mario braces himself as the shockwave reaches all the way to where he's standing. A plume of deadly smoke rises that forms the shape of a skull, so the player must rush over to investigate. Huey remarks that something smells terrible and that he's got a bad feeling, but the reality of the situation is much more dire than he had expected. The Bonsai Bill was carrying noxious black paint, blanketing the once lush landscape with the stuff when it landed. After Mario injures himself by trying to take a miasmic mud bath, Huey seemingly comes to terms with what he must do, and takes care of the problem in a way the player and Mario can't see. Don't worry, this plot point does come up again later. For now, you'd think that the main narrative is as follows. Somehow, Bowser learns of the black paint's potential, and because he's power hungry, he wants to weaponize it to take over Prism Island or the Mushroom Kingdom. Well, no actually, and I'm glad because that would be kind of boring. Color Splash has the silliest reason for its events transpiring, but I ultimately think that it works. When all big paint stars are collected, the final memory reveals that Bowser is just a big old doofus. He watches Toads playing around the paint fountain from high atop the Plaza Tower, like Batman, and, unlike Batman, wants in on the fun, envisioning himself with a sweet rainbow-painted shell.
So long, Bowser!
Hey, say what you will about the Koopa army, but it's nice to know their leader is an LGBTQ+ ally. Anyway, Bowser chuckles at his brilliant idea and leaps into the fountain, scaring all of the Toads shitless, good thing they're already wearing diapers, and starts spinning around rapidly, which combines all of the beautiful colors into a sludge that begins slowly creeping up his body. Should've just dipped your shell in, dude. Up until a few seconds ago, Bowser didn't know the consequences of his actions and was simply enjoying splashing around, but now he's helpless as this new black paint overtakes him, distorting his roar and apparently bestowing him with awesome power. Okay, so he accidentally got powered up, and now he wants to take this poison mistake he's concocted and use it as a weapon, as I mentioned earlier. Well, Bowser's not just tapping into the ability of black paint to aid an evil plan. He's been possessed and is doing its bidding. The black paint of this game is not just a contaminant. It's a living entity with a mind and goals of its own, similar to symbiotes of the Spider-Man universe. If you're unfamiliar, symbiotes are a species of parasitic alien life forms that can bond with a host and influence them, not unlike the goop that's taken hold of Bowser here, and the paint that creates Fury Bowser from the Switch version of Super Mario 3D World. I do think that the black paint works with its host to act on their dark desires, but like a puppet master pulling the strings, the black paint has its own ambition that takes priority, which seems to be spreading itself like a plague throughout Prism Island. The best example of this is with Peach. There's really no reason for the black paint to kidnap her, but because that's what Bowser likes to do, she's stolen away. However, under the paint's control, he eventually drains Peach of her color and frames her as a portrait in the throne room, which goes against what the real Bowser would do. That's a step too far. King Ollie's reveal of what is essentially Peach's flayed body having become part of his origami castle is far more disturbing, but there's still a creepiness to what black paint Bowser's done here. And well before it even happens, she's aware that he isn't truly himself. The penultimate boss, Roy Koopa, actually uses black paint too. After he orders a gang of Slurp guys to extract all of our heroes' paint reserves, Roy loads up the separate colors into his bazooka and fires away. Apparently there are treaties Roy's breaking here that ban using a man's own paint against him. Depending on the color he coats Mario in, it causes a different status effect. Red makes him angry, for example,
speeding up all of his attack animations,
while green demotivates the plumber and
slows everything down,
creating an opposite effect. Perhaps because they're perfect contrasts on the color wheel. That or it's another dig at poor Luigi. Eventually, Roy will get tired of toying around and begin mixing all of Mario's colors to create a blackout, covering the battle arena and himself in the virulent gunk. But the atmosphere really becomes unsettling as the high-energy music fades out and then into a very slowed-down, ominous version of the track. It evokes a feeling that something is seriously very wrong. So the required capital T thing to use here is a washing machine. If that makes zero sense to you, in this game you can squeeze real-world objects called things into battle cards to summon later. Anyway, when using this washing machine, the screen is paused, rolled up, and sent through an express cycle, then spit out all squeaky clean. Sadly, this safer method of removing black paint does not work against the final boss, or in any other situation it'd be very helpful in. Like the next room, where we see how the sausage is made. Endless Shy Guys carrying buckets of stolen paint are transported via this conveyor belt through a tunnel leading to an enormous mixer, where a black paint slurry is pumped through pipes to fill Bonsai Bill so that our villain can literally paint the world black. That means this castle in the sky is essentially a nuclear bomb factory. In a really cool sequence of events, Mario lures a pair of ready-to-blow Bob-ombs to a nest of much larger ones, conveniently sleeping below the main tank of black paint. The little blast from the standard Bob-ombs is enough to ignite all of their bigger brethren, causing a powerful domino effect explosion that obliterates the tank, presumably wiping out all of these Shy Guys and flooding the facility with deathly paint. The loss of this many living Bob-ombs is staggering too, but I admittedly didn't really think much about it during my first playthrough. The ordeal feels a lot different in retrospect after the sequel game, The Origami King, directly addressed the short lifespan of their species, working the idea of explosions they can't come back from into the narrative. Any Shy Guys who weren't blown apart can be seen falling into the rising lethal liquid, with plenty of enemies standing on remnants of the infrastructure that weren't entirely destroyed. If the player isn't fast enough, Mario can also be consumed by the muck for an instant game over. Barely making it out alive thanks to a warp pipe, the man in red and his partner are transported close to the throne room's entrance where the final boss awaits. There's no background music played on the way there. All that can be heard now is the sloshing sound of encroaching black paint below. The final fight itself starts out fairly basic. It's Bowser, but he's juiced up. That's been done many times before, though it's really cool here because this is where the game explicitly reveals that the Koopa King is under the control of this greater evil. Each attack inflicted by the player causes black paint to fling off of Bowser, so after a little while his head can be fully uncovered. When this happens, the air about him changes. No longer is he out for blood, but shocked that Mario's standing in front of him. "Is Princess Peach with you?" he asks before cocking his head up towards the ceiling as the paint, exuding a sinister purple aura, crawls up his body. Once it's swallowed him whole, his eyes, now glowing yellow, later red, open suddenly, as the power overwhelms him and he increases in size. The boss then, speaking as the parasite, tells Mario to ignore its host. In this form, possessed Bowser isn't invincible, but all damage to him is nullified since he's able to recall any paint that's been knocked off. With no other option, Huey finally reveals what he previously kept secret from Mario, his ability to absorb black paint. He also reverts back to his original, non-papery form so that he can be used as a human shield to block and collect the toxin. He tells us the process is painful, and that he can only withstand about 10 more attacks before it does him in for good. The wear on his tiny tin body starts to show with each onslaught, and even his expression changes from angry eyes to a look of fear, knowing that he can't make it much longer. When the black paint's had enough, it initiates a last breath attack, releasing all the rest of itself and Bowser's own paint into a single, incredibly difficult to defend against move, dealing extraordinary damage. If it isn't blocked, a ton of black paint returns to Bowser, basically resetting this phase of the fight, and poor Huey will be worse for the wear, getting increasingly bent out of shape, complete with drooping eyelids. Just as he said, it actually does get to a point where his body can't take it anymore. Unless he's just unconscious here, you can witness Huey die on screen, lids separating from his body as he collapses to the ground with Mario, and the screen fades to white for a game over. You can get lots of very interesting game overs in Color Splash, actually. Like not bringing the proper thing to a Koopaling fight. They don't waste your time. Iggy can crush Mario for 999 damage with an unavoidable thwomp. You can even get a couple of these non-standard game overs after defeating the final boss, too. One by refusing to repaint Peach, even after Huey yells at you to do so, and another for taking too long to escape. If you put the controller down and go use the bathroom while Luigi and Peach are waiting for Mario in the getaway cart, Rainbow Road will fall and a loud crashing noise indicates that the castle did too, killing everyone. Even if you do decide that the gang should all live and get inside of the cart though, Huey opts to stay behind because once the castle implodes, a flood of black paint will come spilling out and land somewhere. He can't let that happen because as a guardian of the Prisma Fountain, it's his destiny not just to ensure the safety of the big paint stars, but to destroy the black paint. He lies to the crew about meeting them back in town because he knows this will destroy him too. Flying underneath the floating castle, Huey squeezes the biggest thing to ever be squeezed into a battle card, wringing out the castle itself and taking in all of the deadly poison, to then take it away, far away from Prism Island so that it can't hurt anyone again. I'm not sure where he's carrying it off to though. Is he flying out to space, dumping it in the ocean, the void, or perhaps a landfill on another continent where it's someone else's problem? I'm just kidding, of course, but I would love to see where the black paint went. Peach implies that Huey's still out there, alive, but the only way to get real confirmation of that is to 100% the game, where a post-credit scene shows Huey bouncing back into the fountain. I'm glad he's alright, but this is the second time, third if you count Tippy, that your partner character is sacrificed. I sure hope that the Origami King won't try to pull that again. All in all, I think Bowser being controlled by this substance with sentience works well, as it's a different approach to the other times he's been possessed in the Mario franchise. Although, I do wish the black paint was given more screen time and lore to stand out as its own character. Most every time black paint Bowser speaks, we know it's mainly coming from the parasite. But the problem is, he's not given very many lines, so we can't gauge much about its personality. I'm not saying the black paint has to be as fleshed out as, say, Venom, but imagine it taking a new, independent form after leaving Bowser, like this cape from the concept art. And then Bowser gets upset that this gross creature took over his body, so he has to work with Mario to subdue it. Maybe the black paint could have possessed others. Even a lowly Shy Guy at Sunglow Ridge would have been interesting, so that it could speak to Mario earlier in the game through another vessel. I'd like to know your thoughts on black paint as the major antagonist. But with the main story pretty much covered, I want to now speak more about these lesser minions. Shy Guys and their many variants in this game mostly range on a scale from silly to scary. You've got ones that have been dunked in water for too long and become the slightly creepy color-smeared soggy guys. Black Shy Guys, who sadly have nothing to do with black paint, are ninjas. While taking over the Toad Captain's ship, this Black Shy Guy introduces himself with a haiku about how blood, paint, will soon be spilled. They require an item or thing card to best due to their mastery, innovation, probably a result of their supposed black belt training. One very special Black Shy Guy wearing a mask, on top of his mask is the distinctive Shy Bandit, with his very own music track amazingly incorporating Shy Guy vocals. Having apparently been banished from his homeland, the Shy Bandit appears randomly on the map select screen in an attempt to drain an entire area's color, even if the level has been fully restored. A calling card bearing their insignia marks the target, so if you can catch them in time, a victory in battle assures nothing will be lost. But what about the plain Shy Guys? The ones without a straw in hand. Those not coated in a layer of foil armor, with nothing special to differentiate their appearance from the rest of their clan. Well, plenty of them make up for their plainness with wisecracks and jokes, but there is one unassuming goon given a poignant backstory based around the very fact that he is a non-distinctive, run-of-the-mill red-robed Shy Guy. On the Sunset Express, speaking with the various non-hostile members of Bowser's forces makes you feel bad for them. A Koopa Troopa in the back just wants to start a family and give up this fool's life, while the aforementioned Shy Guy wants Mario to sit and chat about his real desire to travel the world, but he knows he can't because he's trapped being a slave to the Koopa army. This Shy Guy has given up on his dreams and tells Mario that they'll likely meet again, but unfortunately as enemies. It's powerful to see this side of the henchman, and makes defeating members of their race after quite the difficult task. This scene is funny and unexpected as is, but you can actually find and fight this particular Shy Guy towards the end of the game, just like he predicted. As he's defeated, but before vanishing, he'll explain that if he had to meet his end this way, he's glad it was by Mario's hand. What a heavy emotional sequence of events for a Mario game to cover. Another brutal portrayal of Shy Guy death sees Mario joining this barista Toad and physically squishing several of them as payback for wrecking his cafe. A few Shy Guys are caught under the previously rolled up path, holding it up above their heads so it doesn't flatten them. Well, jumping on top of it with Toad pops them as paint blobs spatter on the ground for Mario to absorb. It's quite surprising to see this executed for the first time. Can you imagine if these Shy Guys never turned blue? I think exploding into red paint would increase the ESRB rating for sure. While on the topic, there's also a bucket that crushes an unsuspecting Shy Guy in Plum Park, and one that ate a magma burger so spicy it turned him into a pile of ashes that can scatter like dust in the wind. This poor soul didn't even have one. He was just torched by a guy who did. Like the Sunset Express Shy Guy, 3 of the Toad Red Rescue Squad members also contemplate life's meaning while waiting in line at the Emerald Circus. The way these Toads describe mortality is a bit pessimistic. And it's easy to miss because I'm sure not many players will be bothered to talk to every single Toad. At the train repair shop, one Toad of many will confess, "My wife left me," when they're all complaining to Mario. Their cries literally cause him pain, so if you had a low amount of health going into the quote-unquote encounter, "My wife left me" could be the last thing Mario hears before his untimely demise. Speaking of death, there are a few ghost Toads in the Dark Blue Mansion stage with a touching backstory. This hotel is stuck in a time loop the player needs to fix by helping and gathering each member of a Toad Tea Party, so that they can enjoy a gathering that never happened when they were alive. This game's neat digital manual expands upon this by stating the unfulfillment of the Toad's oath caused them all deep depression, which apparently has lasted 200 years. Luckily, Mario is here now to help resolve this unfinished business by granting their wish to enjoy tea together once more, ultimately allowing them to ascend to the afterlife in peace. That was bittersweet, but let's get the eye-opening dialogue train going again, starting with one of my favorite lines in the game. After throwing Mario in a prison cell inside Mustard Cafe's Sniffit hideout, the warden states that there's not much more I can do to you without raising this game's age rating. Slap a T rating on there and you can get away with a little torture. At the harbor of Port Prisma, there's a Toad that sells aforementioned things to the player. His shop is tucked away from the rest of the Toads, and upon first interaction, he'll ask Mario if he's a cop. He'll then imply that his goods may or may not have been obtained legally, and once Mario starts using them, he'll be hooked and never want to stop. This sketchy exchange is most certainly the developers innocently having fun with double entendres, which crops up again in Cobalt Base, when a Sniffit shadily sells you cards you'll soon need at a premium outside of the warp pipe leading Mario and Huey to an underwater game show they're forced to participate in. Losing means death, a fact revealed to the contestant upon answering a question incorrectly. A bona fide spike-covered urchin appears above Mario's air bubble, and will inch itself closer and closer with every subsequent wrong answer until the bubble pops, leaving Mario to drown. He's playing for his life, which really helps the show's ratings. In the Golden Coliseum's arena, Mario again has to fight for his life, this time with physical violence. The plumber is pinned up against a barrage of enemies that would likely overpower him if battling normally. Though luckily this isn't a time-consuming event, as Mario's able to find a classic superstar in a nearby crate and plow through every minion. The arena's announcer will cry that Mario is cheating his way to victory using a performance-enhancing power-up, clearly commentary on drug use in professional sports, most likely a statement on Olympic athletes and regulation in particular. It's a massacre! Oh, it's a paint bath! Mario the war criminal emerges victorious. Lastly, we have a freaking gun control joke on the west side of Port Prisma. This Toad comments that while he'd love to ban the use of straws in general because they're being used to hurt innocents, outlawing them will make it so that only outlaws have straws. This line was very shocking to me, just like the 50-second way to use a cork from the article this Toad's reading. Whether or not you like playing the modern Paper Mario games, it's hard to deny that Color Splash and the Origami King have some great writing. That's all I had for today though. Thank you all for watching Dark Aspects of Paper Mario Color Splash. See you next time.